The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
we are now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Wednesday, June 15th, 2000, and I literally almost just said 2009, but it's 2016. Thank you so much for joining us. You could have been anywhere in the world today. And listen, let me tell you guys, I really enjoy doing this show. I'm just sitting here waiting for, two things. If you're watching the video, you see I'm not in like a shirt and tie. That's because I missed my train to go home to get my car and get dressed. And so I actually just came straight to the studio from work and had a little bit of extra time and found myself with some extra minutes, like 5 minutes to spare, and just was excited about cutting this camera on and cutting the stream on so that I can talk to you about what's going on. So we're going to talk about all the news. But before we get into the news, because I am notorious at forgetting to say thank you, I want to say thank you to all of our new patrons that came through since yesterday. Lee, thank you so much for your pledge of $10 a month. I also want to thank Nathan M. Nathan, while I was doing show prep, your email came through saying that you also are pledging $5 a month. Nathan, thank you so much. Lee, thank you so much. You guys be sure to send me your Twitter handle so I can follow you on Twitter. We can't do it without you guys. So thank you again at the top for every patron. I think we're up to 70 patrons right now. You guys are doing a lot to help us out. Also, yesterday I said something that I think I disagree with. Yesterday I said, I don't want you guys to take me off of my real job because my job pays me so well. That's dumb, right? I'm not always the smartest cookie in the jar. Take me off my real job so that I can write and produce and do so much more. If you like my show, you're going to like my writing a lot better. Go check out I haven't been able to write for the last 6 months because of life and work, but just go and check out some of my writings over at pathos.com/God is not a Republican. Go to, my writings are all over the internet. So I said all that to say, you guys help me. I'm going to pour in as much as I can to you to help this progressive movement because, damn it, it is a movement. And Bernie damn Sanders is at the helm, ladies and gentlemen. I wish I had an applause clap. I don't, an applause track. I don't, but I want everybody to just clap your hands and give a round of applause to Bernie M. effing Sanders. I called it last night. I told you. I've been telling you. Bernie Sanders has done something that the Democratic Party cannot control. Bernie Sanders is getting ready to do something that could benefit Democrats if they do the right thing. It could help Hillary Clinton if she does the right thing. But what it's going to do most of all, it's going to help progressives stay organized and mobilized and galvanized over the next 2 to 4 to 6, 8 years. And that's what's most important. What am I talking about? Hopefully you know what I'm talking about already. If you received the email from the Bernie Sanders campaign this afternoon, asking everyone to show up tomorrow night for a speech that he's giving. And in that email, Jeff Weaver outlined the fact exactly what I said last night. You know, don't call me a prophet, but I called this. He said that this movement has to go beyond November. This movement has to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't get elected and make sure that we're organized for the future. And that's the focus that Bernie Sanders is taking now with all of the momentum and power and organization and funds. You know, with great power comes great responsibility. And it would be foolish at this point for Bernie Sanders to fold everything that he's built based on the reasons that he's built it, to fold that into the Hillary Clinton machine and for him to just walk away as if that's the end of the story. Instead, Bernie Sanders looks as though he's going to run a parallel track, a parallel movement. And that movement, the goal of that movement is to bring progressivism to the United States of America. And it's about time. I mean, think about it. When's the last time we actually had some serious progressivism in America? Thank you. I'm glad. Thank you, President Obama. It was a step in the right direction. Clearly, the election of President Obama was a small step in the right direction, right? But it did not bring the progressive movement that we're looking for, and quite frankly, we need. Electing Hillary Clinton, obviously, is not going to be what we need. But the last thing we need is for progressives to fold up shop, shut down, grab their marbles, go home and do nothing. What we need is a revolution that's going to be from the bottom up and gives us time. That's the biggest disadvantage that Bernie Sanders had. He did not have enough time on the national stage to earn and to convince people that what he's saying is true. The biggest advantage that Hillary Clinton had over Bernie Sanders was already built into the system at a minimum of 8 years ago. But the real advantage of Hillary Clinton is that she's been running for president for almost 25 years. That is hard to undo in one campaign cycle, period. And I have a lot of African American friends. I have some black friends. Yeah. I have some black friends who are supporting Hillary Clinton. They're older, right? I still consider them friends. They're older, and they're supporting Hillary Clinton. And I saw them at the wedding when I was in Florida, and they wanted to talk politics because they know what I do. And I'm like, nope, I'm not talking politics with you because I'm not going to fall. I'm not having a falling out over nobody at this point. But they said enough for me to put it in context. They were like, Hillary had been there. Hillary had built the relationships. Hillary had supported the community. Hillary sent money. Hillary did everything that a person needs to do to build the necessary relationships so that somebody coming along to run against her would not even stand a chance to be considered. And dismiss that type of politics at your peril. We cannot neglect that style of politics. And what that style of politics requires is time. And if all of our roads led to and ended at the 2016 election, we would not have time. We didn't have time, and we would waste time going forward. So in other words, this is a good thing. This is a great thing for us to go and focus our attention beyond 2016 and see what this progressive movement that is now a national movement of millions of people can do from the ground up. Also, so that's one, Bernie Sanders has bought us time. Two, Bernie Sanders is going to maintain millions of voices that believe in his message. And I believe the majority of us are concerned enough about the message that we're not going to walk away at the end of this election cycle, because the biggest enemy to progressivism right now is apathy. Because if we shut down shop and fold up our tents and go home after this election, and we do not get engaged on the precinct level, then we will be in the same exact position in 2017, 2018 as we are right now. So he's bought us time to build the relationships that are necessary. He has organized. He has an organization that has the ability to keep us active over the next 2, 4, 6, 8 years. And he has the organization that is strong enough to actually move the dial on issues. So Bernie Sanders will remain a national leader, just not a national leader of the Democratic Party. And you know what? Round of applause. I need my applause track. I think this is the best possible solution. the best possible outcome. And I also know that it's in his best interest not to run against Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump unless there is a fourth party, a strong enough fourth party to be on stage. And I don't know if that's shaping up. I don't know if Gary Johnson and the team are going to get a high enough percentage rate. A matter of fact, I don't know if the system is going to even allow them in. Are they even polling in enough polls to actually include, are the polling agencies including Gary Johnson enough for him to hit the threshold? So I don't think there's going to be a four-way race. If there's not going to be a four-way race, then there does not need to be a three-way race. All right. So I'm excited. I'm excited about the movement transforming right before our eyes and moving into the next stage. Here's the other thing, the last few things I want to say about that. And you can join the conversation. I want to know what you think before I move on to the next topic. 857-600-0518. I want you to call in or tweet me at the BPD show. I'm logging into Twitter now so that I can see it. Okay. Here's the last thing. Progressives have made it clear that they would eat Bernie Sanders for lunch if he ran with or supported Hillary Clinton outright, right? Progressives are clear about that. I think Bernie Sanders knows that. And some people are saying that, well, even if Bernie Sanders walked away, the movement would continue. Yeah, it would. However, with Bernie Sanders still in play, and Bernie Sanders having millions of email addresses in 2016 equals millions of fundraising opportunities. And with millions of fundraising opportunities means that he has the ability to actually move the dial on issues, to help put candidates in office, to help build the relationships that are necessary. So with Bernie Sanders still in play for the next 2 to 4 to 6 years, however long we've got the old guy, with him still in play, 10 years, 20 years, I don't know. Hell, he's young and athletic. With him in play, there's no need for us to reorganize this. There's no need for us to wait and find and build a new infrastructure. There's no need for us to try to find leadership and then have an agreed upon leadership. All we have to do is continue to march forward. So there are tremendous advantages to keeping Bernie Sanders at the helm of this progressive movement. He is not the savior. He is not the hero. He is not Jesus. He's not Martin Luther King. He's none of the above. He's Bernie Sanders. He's a stubborn old man, and he has nothing to lose, and he was the perfect person to pull this off. And so now what we get to do, because I'm petty, I am going to tell you, we get to say, kiss our asses. We can vote with you or we cannot vote with you. We've got our own movement still here. People want to say, well, where are you going to go? Where are we going to go? Right here in this progressive movement that's not going anywhere. The labor movements can benefit from this. Grassroots movements across the country can benefit from this. Locally grounded movements can benefit from this. Everyone who has a progressive agenda of some type can benefit from this, but it also means that Bernie Sanders and this progressive movement can now look across the country and get involved in movements like Chicago and get involved in movements that have been making changes, but we just did not have enough time to get thoroughly engaged and help out on a national level. Now we have the time. Now we have the time to build the relationships, kick ass, take names, and take this country back for progressivism. I cannot stress to you enough how much of a good thing this is, especially if progressives don't lose their minds, don't lose their wits. They keep their heads let's keep our heads about us and realize that this is the strongest position that Bernie Sanders could get out of this election, save being the president itself. And actually, I'm going to be honest with you. I think this is stronger than him actually winning the presidency. If you think about what he can't do without a progressive Congress, then you realize how tied his hands would be even if he won. Now you think about what he can do to help elect a progressive Congress, to help elect local and state level progressives, to help galvanize and re-energize and reinvigorate the progressive movements, the labor movements. Think about all he can do from the grassroots level up, from the precinct level up, so that when the next progressive candidate runs and wins, we would have the infrastructure already in place and the voices and the power already in place. All right. Excuse me. I'm still getting over this cold. 857-600-0518 if you want to join the conversation. What happens when Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, the NRA, and Democrats in general agree on something? Something suspect. I'll tell you that much. So what's happening, and if I'm not mistaken, it's happening right now as we speak. There is still a filibuster going on in the Senate. To give you the backdrop, this has been a pretty eventful day. It started off with Donald Trump, and let me start there. Let me start with Donald Trump, because that's actually the first thing that was in play this morning. Donald Trump sent out a tweet stating that that he was going to meet with the NRA, who had endorsed him, to talk about not allowing people on terrorist watch lists to purchase guns. Now, at face value, there's a lot wrong with, no, let me rephrase that, not face value. When you look underneath it, you realize there's a lot going on with that tweet. Right? There's a lot going on and implications. You have to dig a little bit deeper. There's things that we have to discuss regarding all of that. However, at face value, something has to be said. And it just kind of, it's insane that Donald Trump would directly challenge not the NRA so much as the right wing, the Second Amendment crazies in his party. Like, Donald Trump literally took it to his craziest base today with this one tweet. And notwithstanding that the implications of this conversation that they're supposed to have probably would result in nothing. Never mind that. Never mind that if it resulted in something, it would result in something that is actually problematic in the first place, right? We get that. All of that set aside, he still tweeted out something, a message to all of America, that he was willing to step on the toes of his Second Amendment nuts. I could have just said it like that. He's stepping on his Second Amendment nuts. And you can see this by the response, the visceral response that came from all over right-wing America. I mean, redstate.com, they lost their shit today because Donald Trump sent this message out saying that he's going to speak with the NRA. I mean, conservatives lost their mind. And I don't know. It's one of two things. It's either Donald Trump being a very astute politician and playing a very calculated political game, or it's Donald Trump saying this is something I think is the right thing to do, and I don't care what the nuts in my party says. Either way it goes, that is problematic for Hillary Clinton. Because if he is calculating, it's hard for me to think that Donald Trump is actually thinking, right? I'm not crazy enough to actually think that he's as dumb as I say he is. Donald Trump is not as dumb as we say he is. I think he is a very calculating person. He has to be underneath. And if he's calculating on this level where, here's the calculation. You want to know what the calculation is? This is the calculation. One, he already understands that this is a policy that the NRA essentially says they would be willing to get behind. Mitch McConnell has already previously said that it's something he's willing to get behind if the necessary precautions are put in place to protect civil liberties and due process. That's calculation number one. Number two, it gives him the ostensible high ground on a conversation that is usually relegated to liberals. Can you, I mean, really, before anybody did anything this afternoon, and we'll get to the filibuster, Donald Trump came out of the gate first saying that he's willing to go and talk to the NRA. Matter of fact, I think I have the tweet. Did I pull the tweet? Yeah, I do have the tweet. Put the tweet on your screen. This is the conversation. I will be meeting with the NRA, who has endorsed me, about not allowing people on the terrorist watch list or the no-fly list to buy guns. Later on, the NRA said, okay, happy to meet with the real Donald Trump. Our position is no guns for terrorists, period. Due process and right to self-defense for law-abiding citizens, law-abiding Americans. So a 1-2 punch, real quick, fast, and in a hurry in the morning before the Democrats could do anything. Donald Trump came out. Now, again, there is a lot to be said about the terrorist watch list, the no-fly list, and everything, all those implications. It's a lot to be said about that, right? But in the world of political theater, Donald Trump scored one first this morning. He scored first this morning. And the NRA acquiesced. They said, okay, fine, we're down with that. The reason they're down with that is also a part of the political calculation, right? The political calculation is that this terrorist fly list and the terrorist watch list, rather, those don't affect their demographics as much as their audience really tries to feign disgust over. The people who are on the no-fly list, the people who are on the terrorist watch list, are overwhelmingly people of color. And yes, there are some people of color who are part of the NRA. I get it. But the demographics of the NRA, those people are not the ones who are arbitrarily being put on this list. And the concept that there is a list out there that is so subjective to policies that are not transparent and decisions that are more difficult to undo to get off versus how easy it is to get on. The list is so problematic in the first place that it is something that the due process that the NRA is actually saying they want to ensure is actually the right thing. This is the crazy world that this is all that's happened today. Today, Donald Trump said, I'm going to challenge my nutcases by having a conversation with the NRA on a no-fly list that probably shouldn't exist in the first place, but we can all agree, in his world, we can all agree that the terrorists that are on that list, or the so-called terrorists or the suspected terrorists on that list, should not be able to purchase guns. NRA came right back and said, we agree. Let's just make sure there are protections for due process. All right. So that was this morning. And the NRA actually came out with a full statement, and I want to read the full statement for you because it actually partially makes sense. I'll put it on your screen. This is from today. The NRA believes that terrorists should not be allowed to purchase or possess firearms, period. Anyone on the terror watch list who tries to buy should be thoroughly investigated by the FBI and the sale delayed while the investigation is ongoing. If an investigation uncovers evidence of terrorist activities or involvement, the government should be allowed to immediately go to court, block the sale, and arrest the terrorist. At the same time, due process protections should be put in place that allow law-abiding Americans who have been wrongly put on a watch list to be removed. That has been the position of John Cornyn, a Republican of Texas, and the majority of the U.S. Senate. Sadly, President Obama and his allies will prefer to play politics with this issue. Guys, it pains me. It pains me to say this, but the NRA is not wrong completely on their statement. I think it's disingenuous. I think they're really expressing this outrage simply because of guns, right? I don't think they have a true concern about the fly list, the no-fly list, and the terrorist watch list. Let's be sure, right? This is the only reason they're worried about the due process is because they have this overarching fear that the tyrannical Obama administration would start arbitrarily putting their perfect demographic of people on the watch list, and then they would not be able to get guns. That's really the motivation behind it. They are not coming out against the no-fly list. They're not coming out against the terrorist watch list. They're simply saying, we don't want that atrocious policy to inhibit people from being able to buy guns. So this is a case of the NRA doing the right thing, but not for the right reasons. But who am I to judge? They're not wrong, because anyone who looks objectively at the way that the names are placed on the terrorist watch list, and you see how arbitrary it is, and you see how difficult it is to get your name cleared after you've been put on it, you realize how problematic it is. So it just feels weird. It feels weird. It felt weird all morning to see Donald Trump being the one willing to step on the feet of his nuts, his right-wing Second Amendment gun nuts. The NRA coming back and saying, yes, let's have this conversation, so long as we make sure there's some protections for due process in it. What kind of world do we live in? Well, apparently, and I'm sorry if I'm not I don't really see this as something that we should just be running around rejoicing over like a lot of people are. I'm sorry. Somebody called me a contrarian. I'm sorry. I just see through the bullshit, and I see the hypocrisy, and I see motivations, right? I don't just look at it on the surface and say, oh, wow, this is a great thing. I have to ask questions about it. Otherwise, why would you listen to me if I don't ask questions? So while Donald Trump and the NRA kind of scored in the morning, the Democrats had to come and one up. Because when I'm sorry, guys. I know some of you are like, oh, this is a great thing with the filibuster. It's cool. Hey, they're doing something. I got it. I get it. It's better than being on vacation. But the Democrats are doing a one up. Because Donald Trump and the NRA scored this morning. The Democrats have to one-up them, and they're doing it with this enough. Let me put this hashtag enough. This is the hashtag that they're going underneath for this filibuster that I believe is still going on. And sorry, guys. The filibuster is being led by Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy. U.S. Senator from Connecticut. He's calling for, they're actually attaching this to Dianne Feinstein, piece of legislation that she submitted months ago, but they're tying this movement to that legislation, asking for universal background checks, and watch this, also to deny suspected terrorists from purchasing guns. So the only difference between what the Democrats are asking for and the NRA and Donald Trump is asking for is the universal background checks. Where do you think the compromise is going to land? They're not going to get universal background checks. Scratch that. At the end of the day, if they do anything, the only thing that will be done is to deny suspected terrorists from purchasing guns, with the concession that there must be due process in place. Here's the thing. The crazy thing about it, I've said it already and I have to say it again, damn it. If you believe the terrorist watch list is problematic, the NRA is the conduit through which there's a recourse. There's a way of addressing it to make sure that due process is in place and that people are not thrown on that list or not that people aren't thrown on it, but that people have a means to get off of it so that they can purchase a gun. You see how? So here are my questions. Here are my questions for the audience. Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader, Republican, has already said that he wants to pass the legislation by Senator Corbin, I believe, of Texas, that will put these protections for due process in place. And as long as those protections of due process are in place, then they're willing to ban people who are on, or they're willing to make it difficult for a person who is on that no-fly list and the terrorist watch list to purchase a gun. And by difficult, that means that the there's a delay and the federal government can review, and then the federal government can shut down the sale and apprehend the person if there's something found, which is more than what we're doing right now. So Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says, I'm on board. Just make sure we have protections for due process. The NRA says we're on board. Same legislation, so long as there's protections for due process. Donald Trump says, I want to talk about it. Let's make sure that we have no one buying guns that are on terrorist watch lists. The filibuster is about making sure that no one who is on the terrorist watch list can buy a gun. They all agree. So what is the show for? They all agree that no one on the terrorist watch list should be able to purchase guns. And the more progressive, for the conservative reason, I know that's convoluted, but if you're following me, you understand what I'm saying. The more progressive iteration of this debate, albeit for conservative reasons, is coming from the NRA. So what are we arguing? What is the filibuster for? It's for showcase, because that's what we do. That's what we do. Democrats had to one-up Donald Trump this morning. Donald Trump scored this morning, and Democrats had to one-up it. And so they have this great passionate movement that's going on. They all agree. All right. The real problem is, should this watch list, terrorist watch list, exist in the fashion that it exists in right now? Right? Nobody's asking that question. We're really just asking, can we use this as a means of getting one inch closer to gun control? And there's some things that that a lot of people on my team, there's a lot of conversations about this in our chat room, particular Dr. Hyde. She was pointing out that, this list overwhelmingly affects people of color, does not affect the number one perpetrators of mass shootings, which are young white men. Young white men are not overwhelmingly represented on this. It's a list full of people of color. So even if they use this, to what degree is it going to help prevent the next mass shooting? Now, in my opinion, if it helps prevent a single mass shooting, then damn it, I'm not going to complain about it. But the odds are not in our favor. Unless they're going to put about the list right now has 1.1 million people who are suspected terrorists or have suspected ties with terrorists, and a majority of them are people of color. So unless they're going to put like 1.1 million young white men on that list, it really will not have the effect that people are going to pretend that it has when this filibuster is over. And when this legislation, if it passes, they are going to pretend as though it's going to have this amazing effect, which will have the subsequent effect of delaying real gun control legislation from coming forward. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know if you came and I don't know if you're celebrating the filibuster and you're feeling good about the filibuster. I get it. It moves me. I am touched by it. I don't want you to think I'm just this contrarian. I'm going to use your word again, guy. I'm this bitter, cantankerous guy who can't see joy in anything. I can. I think it's great. Good. Do it. Do it. Damn it, do it. You agree, though. You agree. So just sign the damn legislation. No, we have to showcase. I'm not interested in the people who need to show up for the showcase. I'm interested in the people who are doing this when no one's looking. All right. Is this caller still on hold? Because unfortunately, they called as soon as I started talking about guns, which means they have been holding for at least 15 minutes. Caller, thanks for your patience. What's on your mind? What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, no problem. It's John from Mississippi.
John, what's on your mind, man?
Hey, well, you've actually gone through a lot of what's been on my mind this week, but, everyone's been on this high because I don't know if you pay attention, but the approval ratings, quote unquote, are supposedly all against Donald Trump because of what he said about the Obama and the Orlando shootings, and they're glad Hillary Clinton's approval ratings are going up because of her endorsements and finally clinching the primary, stuff like that. But I'm freaking out.
Really? Tell me why.
If you think about this, and maybe demographics are still on our side. I hope to God they are. But if Donald Trump has the appearance of succeeding, not even being a part of Washington hardly at all, and his influences manages to get this legislation passed.
Yeah.
While in a war of words with the sitting president of the United States.
Yeah. But see, that's why, John.
We're in trouble.
John, but that's why the Democrats came out so hard today, right? If you think about it, who's talking? What is the entire world talking about right now? Go ahead.
Honestly, I think some of that's going on in our own bubble. I don't know how well that's coming across all the way across the aisle. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how far that's reaching across.
Well,
I'm worried the message is leaning in Donald Trump's favor.
So we'll have to see. I see what you're saying. I would say that it's possible, but with every mainstream media outlet covering this filibuster like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and with people, they're really hyping this up to be huge. I think, honestly, my opinion, and we'll have to see the data. Let's see who gets the bump, right? Let's see who gets the bump. If Donald Trump gets a bump when they do the polling tomorrow, then I would say he won the day, right? If he doesn't get a bump and Hillary Clinton is a proxy for the Democrats gets a bump, then I would say the filibuster won the day. So let's keep our eye on it. But I think you have some great observations there. Thanks so much for the call, man.
Okay.
857-600-0518. I think that's a good point, right? Let's see who actually wins the day. But this is the thing that it's really crazy. I gave you the 20-minute version. Here's the bullet point version. And actually, I think I outlined it better in my chat room. I'm just going to pull it up here because I already said it once today. No, I said it in the general room. Hang on. I could recite it, but I already wrote it out pretty good. Okay, so here's the thing. So they're filibustering to get universal background checks and to keep people on the terrorist watch list, no-fly list from buying guns. Donald Trump's tweet today said he also didn't think that anyone on the watch list should be able to buy guns. The NRA says, we agree, so long as there are protections for due process. Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader, says the same exact thing. Yet they're doing a damn filibuster on something they all agree on something that is problematic for due process and civil liberties. What happens when Democrats and Republicans and the NRA and Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton agree? We can pass legislation that's going to be problematic for civil liberties and due process. 857-600-0518. All right, let's talk about some other news. So back to the story of Orlando, the Orlando shooting. Just before the show, it broke that the FBI concluded that the shooter only had a single target, and the single target was Club Pulse. After their initial investigation, the Club Pulse was the intended target. Nothing that we don't already know, right? As you dig deeper, you realize that was a target of his ire. But they've come to the conclusion in this initial part of the investigation that there was no other target in Orlando. It's been a tough week for Orlando, folks. Also, it seems as though the wife knew a lot more than what she originally let on. Investigators are exploring whether or not she knew enough to warrant her to notify the police. And if she didn't notify the police, then there could have been charges. Did she know enough for there to be charges? So that is something that they're investigating. But many people are, and by many people, some news outlets, particularly I think the New York Daily News, are really putting this at her feet, saying that she knew enough to help prevent this massacre. The FBI hasn't concluded that. They have not come to that same conclusion yet, but they are investigating how much the wife actually knew. In terms of the bigger picture still, I found it interesting that there are actually some LGBT voices that are interested in separating the sexuality of Omar Mateen from the story and the massacre. I've seen it in several places, and I won't use any names right now because I'm still talking to them. But I've seen it in several places where some LGBT voices are trying to separate that out as being two different things. And I don't think this is really, I'm kind of asking you as an audience. I'm not sure I understand why, or at least I'm not willing to say why they would want to separate this as two different things, because to me, it's inseparable, right? To me, his sexuality and either his self-hatred because of his sexuality, or his rejection. Somebody could have rejected. There's all sorts of things that the focal point was this LGBTQ club. So how would we separate out his identity and his sexuality, rather, from his execution of this horrific crime against the LGBTQ community? That's something I wanted to just throw out there to the audience, and you guys hit me in the chat and hit me on Twitter and let me know what you think. How could his sexuality be separate from this narrative? Because to me, it just seems like it's one and the same. It's like there's no separation, particularly because of his family influences, because of the religious influences, because of him having to hide this lifestyle. And if he hated the lifestyle, it would have made him that much angrier because his son saw that lifestyle in the previous weeks with two men kissing in public. You see, to me, it's like it just makes no sense whatsoever to think that his sexuality would be something separate from but maybe I'm not looking at it through the lens of the LGBTQ lens. And so I'm asking the audience, if you guys, I would love to hear your insight and your thoughts on that. And yeah, one thing that came out of this that was there are some decent people in the world, man. There are some people who will admit that they are wrong, and while they admit that they're wrong, they're willing to change. I'm getting ready to play a video for you of a Utah Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox. He was at a rally just after the shooting, and well, I'll play it. Let me play it, and you just listen into just a couple seconds of it. Here's Republican Lieutenant Governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, and he's speaking about how this event shifted his thinking with regard to his own homophobia and with regards to policies that he has previously supported that he now no longer supports. Let's listen in.
We will now listen from the Lieutenant Governor. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very humbled and honored to be here with you tonight. Loudly so you can hear in the back. I'm supposed to be in Miller County tonight, but this was too important when Jim asked me to come. I almost never write what I'm going to say, but about an hour ago I sat down and the words just came, and so I wrote them, and so I hope you'll allow me to read these. Thank you for being here tonight on this very solemn and somber occasion. I begin with an admission and an apology. First, I recognize fully that I am a balding, youngish, middle-aged, straight white male Republican politician with all of the expectations and privileges that come with those labels. I am probably not who you expected to hear from today. I'm here because yesterday morning, 49 Americans were brutally murdered. And it made me sad. And it made me angry. And it made me confused. I'm here because those 49 people were gay. I'm here because it shouldn't matter, but I'm here because it does. Now, I'm not here to tell you that I know exactly what you are going through. I'm not here to tell you that I feel your pain. I don't pretend to know the depths of what you are feeling right now. But I do know what it feels like to be scared. And I do know what it feels like to be sad. And I do know what it feels like to be rejected. And more importantly, I know what it feels like to be loved. I grew up in a small town.
I'm going to cut it there. I'm going to cut it there because at the end of this video, he said something that I want to point out. He said, think back to when you found out that 49 people were killed and think about how that make you feel. How did that make you feel? And then he said, think about what you thought once you learned that they were LGBTQ. And he said that if your opinion or how you felt changed because you found out that they were gay or lesbian, transgender, bisexual, he said that it shouldn't have, and that we have to look at ourselves. And if our love and concern for people only goes as far as how we agree with them or how we view them, then the problem isn't them, the problem is us. And I'm pointing this out because this is a Republican, right? This is a Republican with one of the most sincere, reflective responses to, and of course, I know I'm not saying Republicans are not human. I don't buy into that. But I'm saying out of everyone, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, a lot of the leading voices in media, out of everyone's response, this guy got it right because he used it as a moment to look at himself and say, I've been doing something wrong and I've been treating people wrong and the policies that I've been pushing are wrong. And he made an about face and said, because of this tragic incident, I now see my error and I'm changing it. I don't think that there's a more powerful example of what you're supposed to do with your life. It's to be able to admit that you've done something wrong and that you have been wrong and that you're literally changing your mind about what you used to believe. It's a tragedy that it took a tragedy for him to get to this point. But in the midst of this tragedy, we have a lot of people who are still the same exact way. And I feel that it's going to be the same exact thing with gun policy. I feel like we have a lot of people, and I want to know what this guy thinks about gun policy, right? Let's go one step further, right? You know, accepting the LGBTQ community is one thing, but now let's talk about gun policy, but I'll leave him alone for today. But I want to know, like, what are we going to do differently as a nation? What are we going to do? How are we going to look back and say we are changing the way we think and the way we treat people? Because if all we do is go tragedy after tragedy and not change a damn thing, then the next tragedy is on us. A plague on all of a pox on all of our houses. If we go tragedy after tragedy and we say the right words, but we don't change a damn thing. So that's why I wanted to point out this Republican Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox for really saying that I have been wrong. And now I'm changing. I want to read this quote I think I can read this. This is in response to my question about why we would want to separate the narrative of this guy's sexuality from the story. And Dr. High says it goes back to the community under siege that Kieran Opal talked about. As long as identity politics are being weaponized for political agendas, groups are going to defend and excuse their identities from the narrative, when in fact we need safe spaces to discuss hate, even in our own communities. Queerphobia, biphobia, transphobia, and issues are issues in LGBT communities too. Deflecting prevents needed conversations, in my opinion. If people are on the defense with how a certain facet of his identity played a role in the shooting, they aren't having the right conversations. Essentially, the two different conversations to me comes down to this: how to properly. Okay, and then she shares some links. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't have an applaud track, not tonight. But yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking, and I didn't want to be the one to say it because I'm not from the LGBTQ community, right? I don't want to speak on behalf of a community that I'm not in the trenches with them, right? But yeah, I co-sign that 100%. So just to a quick summary of what she was saying is that for people who are out there saying that we have to treat this as two different stories, that his sexuality had no bearing on his action. It's a knee-jerk reaction to trying to defend your community from outside critique, and it prevents your community from having that necessary internal conversation to address the issues that are inside of your conversation. And Q, I think that's something great. I don't know if you could take a picture of that. It's a long one, but if you could tweet that out for everyone, I think that's great. Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to talk about that story one more time because it's really not going away. It's something that we have to look at and discuss. And I think one of the most resounding lessons to be learned out of this is exactly what Q mentioned, Dr. Q mentioned, and exactly what Kieran Opal mentioned. And it's something that I've been meaning to. I've mentioned once a very long time ago. It's our inability or unwillingness, or no, we're not able to have these necessary internal conversations because we're bombarded from outside so much, right? We're attacked so much. And the best example I can give you would be this past weekend in Chicago. I think 27 people were shot and 7 were killed, some ridiculous amount. And this happens every single weekend in black communities in Chicago. And yet we have a knee-jerk reaction to push back against people who are trying to criticize the black community because of the violence in the black community, right? And we're not able to have the internal conversations that are necessary to say, listen, what the hell is going on in Chicago, man? Chicago, get your shit together, right? We need to get, I hate to sound like Bill O'Reilly, but damn it, Bill O'Reilly had a video a couple of weeks ago or last week that was spot on. Like, we need to shut Chicago down. Like, with the number of people being killed in Chicago, there's the National Guard should be in Chicago. Of course, there's problems with the National Guard, but something has to be done in Chicago. And we're not able to have those conversations because in one day, only one day out of 20 years of hearing Bill O'Reilly, he says something sensible. On every other day, we're bombarded with nothing but the most racist, vitriol, and opportunistic narratives to forward their agenda at our expense. And we're not able to have a respite, a moment, a lull where we can actually just tend to our community without having to constantly fight back against these narratives that are set out to destroy our community. That's how it is in the black community. And that's just one issue in the black community out of many issues, a myriad of issues that we have to confront. And so it's the same thing as with Kieran Opal this week. She said the same thing with the Islamophobia and being used as a means of attacking Islam. It doesn't give Muslims the chance to breathe so that they can address the homophobia and the reforms that are necessary in Islam, because you have people from every side. And granted, the reality of it is there is no safe space, right? There's no safe space. We're going to have to do both and. We're going to have to simultaneously fight pushing back on people on the outside and fight against the people on the inside. It's too much is given, much is required. If we know this, if the LGBTQ community knows this, and that there are voices out there who are trying to ignore his sexuality to prevent any other conversations or to knee-jerk reaction protect the LGBTQ community, the reality of it is that if you understand that, then the responsibility is there for you to do both because they're never going to give us a moment to breathe. They're never going to give us a moment where we can sit still and just peacefully take care of the issues in our community. It's a dual front. It's a dual battlefield every single day for every community. Excuse me, guys. I'm still fighting this. All right, last story of the night, and maybe I'll find, you know what? No, I am going to find something better to talk about after this, because this next story is so sad. Orlando has been through it, man. This has been one of the toughest weeks for the city of Orlando. But last night at about 9:45 in the evening, a family was enjoying a film in the park in Orlando at a Disney resort. Their 2-year-old boy, his name was Lane Graves, walked away and started wading in water near a lake near where they were. And around 9:45, an alligator attacked him and drug him away. The father, whose name was Matt Graves, wrestled the alligator as best he could, suffering some injuries, some minor injuries, but all the witnesses said that he did everything he could, and the mother, Melissa, jumped in to do what she could, but the alligator drugged the baby away. And it wasn't until this afternoon, until 1:45 this afternoon, that the body was found about 10 and 15 feet from shore. So the 2-year-old was pronounced dead, 2-year-old boy from Nebraska. And horrible story. And this is going to sound morbid and grim, but I saw that the family felt the same relief that I felt when they found out that the boy's body was intact and that there were just several puncture wounds from where the alligator bit him. So the boy didn't die by the alligator devouring him. He died by drowning, which, doesn't make it better, but it was a relief. The family expressed relief in the sense that the boy's body was still intact. It's a very, very painful. I mean, you have to imagine the family flew down rather from Nebraska and for a vacation, and now they can't go home with their son. And the human, man, it's always do your best, people. Everyone listening to me, always do your best to be kind. I know I'm not the nicest person in the world. I don't pretend to be, but whenever you can, be kind, because life is short, man. Life is short, and this family is broken. And there's a lot of people out there who are just really disgusting people who have been attacking them, making a mockery out of the situation. But that's just what twisted people do, right? That's part of the human condition. So that's all the more necessary for us, incumbent upon us who know how to be kind, for us to be kind. Whatever you do, find a way to be kind. All right. I wanted to talk about something else, but I don't know. So this is what we're going to do. I'm getting ready to shut it down for tonight. I'm starting to do an after party, an after show, an after party. I'll give you more details of it. In the after party, you will be able to call in with your video, Skype in and talk with me via video. And we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. That's going to be the after party. We're going to start doing that. I don't know if we're going to do it every night, but we'll test it out and see how many nights a week we'll do it. That way I can get to know you. I can get to see faces. I can put faces with names, people who are listening via video, via the internet radio or iHeartRadio. You can do the same thing. Any of you can find me on Skype, The Benjamin Dixon Show. On Skype, throw that in your Skype account, The Benjamin Dixon Show, and call me up during the after party and join the after party. We don't necessarily have to talk about politics, but you know, that's what I do well. So we can talk about politics and I can answer some of your questions. Last but not least, the station identification. I want to thank all the patrons, everyone who's been a supporter. I want to encourage you to come on, buy me a cup of coffee, buy the show a cup of coffee, help us grow, help us do more. We're looking forward to building the Benjamin Dixon Show and the Progressive Army and moving us forward and being a necessary voice in this new revolution. A necessary voice in this new revolution as we get ready to do more and more things. So, folks, listen, it's 10 o'clock. Unless there's a impromptu after party, I don't know. I'll know when I play the music whether I'll stay. But if not, listen, again, I want to say this again. Above all else, my normal motto is this: when you can be kind, but when you can't, take no prisoners. But it's been that kind of week where I just want to truncate the end, cut the end off just for this week. Next week, we'll go back to taking no prisoners. But this week, when you can be kind, be kind. See you next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
We will now listen from the Lieutenant Governor of Utah, Spencer Cox.
Hang on.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is
man.
only possible with listener support.
We got all kinds of things playing tonight. All right, so, folks, I'm going to stay a few seconds after on YouTube, everyone on Spreaker, and on the iHeartRadio. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. YouTube. Let's see the chat room. Let's see what's going on in the chat room. And after the party is the hotel lobby. And, yep, after the lobby is probably Chris. And after the original is probably this. Nothing would change. Digital 83 said, but in response to Chicago specifically, nothing would change until the politics there change. Their leaders don't give an F about poor black people, period. And that leads to the constant violence. The community can't fix it on their own. I agree. Let's see. NRA membership. We'll talk about that. Same as other people. I think his explanation works of critiques of Obama. Why would some people choose to be a part of a group that is so maligned? Which link is that? Somebody wants me to share a link. All right, YouTube. I want to stay on long enough to take one video caller. All right, so one video caller call in to the Benjamin Dixon Show using your Skype account. So just use your Skype account and look up the Benjamin Dixon Show, and you can call in and join the conversation. Let's see. I see you guys have some others. Yeah, I got some other conversations in here. I'm not wading in. I'm not going into some of these conversations. Y'all crazy. Shameful said, the more we are reactionary, the more we spin up hate and try to blame different things, groups, instead of just embracing and supporting the victims and perpetuating a more positive environment. I agree 100%. I hadn't heard about the wife, but if everyone always wants to blame the families like they did with the brother of the San Bernardino shooting, someone must go to jail is the sentiment. Yeah, that's true. That's true. We do like to do that. Fritz Carl said, I'm still not convinced that the shooter was gay. Could be, could not be. Does it matter? No, not to me. I don't know. Jank did a video on this, and I watched it today, and he was like, he said, Juger, he was like conclusively, yeah, like you don't go to a gay club a dozen times and not be gay. And I'm like, Jank, that's not necessarily the truth. Like, I've gone to gay clubs before. I've gone once, right? But I went with a group of friends, and we just went, right? But his assumption is that because you go to a gay club, that means you're gay. That's not necessarily true. I don't agree with that assessment, right? Going somewhere does not prove anything about you. You could just, whatever. I don't think it's true. Let's see. So it could be that he was not gay. It could be that he just hated the LGBTQ community that much. I'm of the opinion. I think he was gay, and I think he had a problem with his own sexuality. Because the reason I say that is because you see this in religious circles so much. People who hate themselves express that hatred towards other people like them. And you would see preachers who preach the most bitter sermons towards the LGBTQ community, and they ended up being gay or lesbian. So that's why I draw that conclusion. You see this type of expression of hate so strongly. Yeah. Robo Tomorrow said that he's been there. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that him just going there, proves that he was gay. I think the information, all of the other information from people who said that they met him on Grindr, they met him on he asked them out on dates. That's why I draw the conclusion that he was gay, not because he said not because he went to a gay club, but because of all the other evidence around it. So that's my opinion. All right. First up on the video, let's see if I can get you on split screen. David, my producer, what's going on, man?
Hey.
Glad you could join us.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I can hear you fine. You won't be able to see me, but you can hear me.
All right, cool. I thought no one else was calling in. I'd give you a call. And you didn't talk about it occurred to me you didn't talk about the victories. I think yesterday, the Bernie-crats, the folks. I think it was it South Carolina, and there was another state where several people won, couple losses, but several people won. Yep.
No, I mean, yeah, congratulations to them. Just a lot. Yesterday was a busy news day.
It was an example of what could come after November, depending on how things move forward.
Listen, I fully expect. It only requires somebody at the helm that has the vision, right? That's the big question. Will Jeff and Bernie have a big enough vision to do the things that are necessary to really change America with this movement? Because if they do, then they'll start replicating some of those victories that we saw yesterday. They'll start participating in some of the more grassroots movement. They'll do the things that are necessary. So I think Bernie is enough to keep us motivated, but is it enough? Will we have enough to be as organized? Not even organized. I think organization is fine. Rolled out and sent out to do, right? Mobilized. Are we going to be mobilized into action enough to actually accomplish some of these things? That's my only question.
I think one of the biggest challenges that most people agree and concur on is that the progressive movement is so large and with so many varying opinions and views that we coalesce around something like we're doing now, but then it gets messy when different groups organize separately. So I'm wondering if the fact that with Bernie, if Bernie were to remain as the figurehead or one of the figureheads, if that keeps us organized with all the different umbrella groups that are now, with you have Grassroots Select, you have Brand New Congress, you have People for Bernie and others. I wonder if all of those can survive but remain connected if he were to stay in it.
Yeah, here's the deal. So, you have to go ahead and accept the fact that this type of structure is very authoritarian. It's not a democracy. Bernie is not starting a democracy because he's building this on top of his organization that he built on his campaign, which means they're going to be making some calls. They're going to make calls that a lot of people don't agree with, but he would have the national platform and the national fundraising capacity such to move this progressive movement forward. I said all that to say he's going to make decisions, and his team are going to make decisions that a lot of people don't that a lot of people don't agree with, just because it's not a democracy, and they're not going to sit around and wait for everyone's approval. And I actually agree with that, right? Because if we sit around and wait for everyone's approval, we'll never get anything done. I said that to say this: it's a matter of how much we petition him and hold his feet to the fire to address the issues that are important to our individual segment of the progressive movement. So it's not that Bernie Sanders is the end all to be all for everything progressive. It's that he has a platform that he benefits from, that we can benefit from. We just have to hold his feet to the fire every step of the way.
Yeah, I agree. No argument for me.
Thanks for the call, man. See you
Yep.
next time.
Have a good night.
Folks, it's that easy. You can join the conversation in our after party. So we won't do it tonight. I'll give you guys a few more minutes. But if you add the Benjamin Dixon Show on Skype and you call in with your Skype video, you could join in, and I could put your face to the name and the name to the face. Lucy Flores lost. Yep. Alex Singer lost. Lucy Flores had only about 8,000 votes, needed 13,000 to win. That was definitely possible. Lack of organization needs improvement. Yeah, here's the thing. I'll say this. The one thing that Bernie Sanders has to do, and I'm going for real. The one thing that Bernie Sanders has to do is to get people who are not currently voting. Let's create a brand new electorate. I'm glad you guys are doing a brand new Congress, but we need a brand new electorate so that we can elect a brand new Congress, because we're not going to get the establishment voters, not yet, and not for a long time, not until we show them the power that we have. What we can get, let's just take the black community as a microcosm. What we can get is that 89% of black people, if we just get 50% of that 89%, we've crushed the Democratic Party, or we've crushed that coalition that they currently have. 89% of black people did not vote for Hillary Clinton, and that's nationwide, right? We're not talking about people who voted. We're talking about people who did not vote or did not vote for Hillary Clinton. So the combination of the people who voted for the black people who voted for Bernie Sanders, and in addition to the black people who just did not vote at all, it was a total of 89% of all black people. So only 11% of all African Americans voted for Hillary Clinton. That is easily defeated if we organize and mobilize a new electorate. Now, maybe I should have kept this in the first segment. Maybe I forgot to say this. I'll upload this as a separate track for iHeartRadio. For Bernie's revolution, it is going to. We cannot wait for Bernie to come to us, and Bernie cannot wait for us to go to him. We've all got to start this thing off now, right now. And what am I saying? I'm saying that there is a huge amount. I'm just talking about I'm talking about my intersection. I'm talking about the black community. Same thing goes for the LGBTQ community, the Muslim community, and I know they're not mutually exclusive. I got it, right? But I'm just talking about the black community right now. There is a tremendous amount of voices that have very large platforms and great influence that refuse to support the Democratic Party, but they said that they support the revolution. Well, guess what? It's time to show up for duty. You missed the election? Fine. It's over with. Fine. He's not the nominee. You couldn't get with the Democratic Party. But you know what? To every black leader out there who said they co-signed Michelle Alexander, love you so much. But you said you co-signed the revolution, not the Democratic Party. Now it's time for voices like yours to show up. Eddie Glaude, I'll send you an email. It's time for us to show up, right? It's time for all those voices who sat on the sideline because they could not join with the Democratic Party. It's time for us to show up and help galvanize all of those people who did not vote at all. It's time for the white working class contingency of the left side of America. It's time for you guys to go out and get them registered to vote. and get them engaged and get them the information and the knowledge that they need to know. It's time. This is it. This is our opportunity. And we're not talking about trying to get this done before November. We're talking about getting this done before the next election. So for every group, there are more people who do not vote in America that do vote. And we have the opportunity to build a brand new electorate. And we can't wait on Bernie Sanders to come to us. And Bernie Sanders can't wait on us to come to him. We all have to do our own part and then meet and say, this is what we're bringing to the table, Bernie Sanders. What are you going to do for this coalition that we're bringing to you? Well, Ben, this is what we're doing here, and this is what we could do for you. Now, what are you going to do for us? We're going to give you these votes. All right. This is the person we want to get elected. Let's get that person elected in this district. Let's get that person elected in that district so that by the time somebody runs for president again from the progressive left, it's a done deal. Paint a picture even better for you. It's time for Bernie Sanders style coalitions to go through every block, every hood, every trailer park, every place where we hang out, every place where we eat, go to every barbershop, to go to some of these more radical churches. And when I say radical, I mean radical as in good, like the liberation theology churches. Go and find the churches that are like the Jeremiah Wrights. Go and find the churches that are like the Eddie Glauds. Go and find those churches and build roots in those communities starting now. So that when people come back around, they may not know who, I don't have a name. They may not know who Alex Law is, but they'll know the movement that has surrounded Alex Law, and they'll trust the movement that has surrounded Alex Law. You guys get the picture. Nick Nolan said it won't work inside the Democrat. Everything that I've said is completely separate from the Democratic Party. It is the beautiful thing about this is that it doesn't have to wait on the Democratic Party. It doesn't have to respond to the Democratic Party, and it doesn't not have to respond to the Democratic Party. I know that it makes no sense, but it made perfect sense to me. In other words, if this movement so chooses to put its weight behind the Democratic Party, it can overwhelm the Democratic Party, or it can run as its own separate entity. But to sit around and worry about it not working in the Democratic Party is just another excuse for us not to do anything, right? That's what people always sit around and worry about. People, the Green Party, everybody sit around and worry about black people. We're worried about the Democratic Party. Screw the Democratic Party. We have a movement that is free agents. The progressive movement is now a free agent, and it's up to us to organize it as strong as we need it to be, and to help elect people that we choose and say those are the people who represent our values. We are free agents. It's off season. Now it's time to go get our contracts. Karen, let's see the name. Somebody said Karen. There's a name in here. A name brand. I'm sorry, what's the name of it? Okay, I can't see it. I'll probably get it to when I shut it down. All right, folks, that's it. I'm going to, train doesn't leave till 10:45. Catch you guys later. Somehow I'm going to, do I need closing music? I don't need closing music. Yeah, I do. I think I do. Yeah, I do. Later.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Have you become a Patreon today? If you're still here, you're a good candidate to be a Patreon. All right.